In recent years, a term has been frequently used: masculinity crisis. The modern man who can't express his feelings, who has lost his role. This claim has confused the modern man and made him question how he should behave again. This is presented as if it appeared overnight, like a virus. But is this really a new situation? Or is the real issue that we are having trouble adapting to this change? But we, as histic detectives, know that no mystery lying in the depths of history is a coincidence. So let's take a look into the misty corridors of time to investigate the origins of this modern crisis. Our question is simple: is it really a crisis, or just the latest stage of an evolution that has been going on for centuries? When we take our first step into the ancient world, we find a clear definition. Masculinity was measured by physical strength, honor, and heroism. Masculinity of that era was like a map. Its rules were clear.
The courage of Achilles, the endurance of the Spartan.
These were the tangible artifacts we unearthed from the archaeology of masculinity of that period. Not only Greek and Roman, but also the brave warriors of the Vikings and the honor codes of the Japanese samurai were included in this definition. A man's value was determined by his fighting ability, his capacity to protect his lands, and to continue his lineage. Every man had to transform into one of the artifacts in this museum. This was not just a display of physical strength, but also an unchanging moral code that society expected. This was a world with no room for emotional weakness, resembling a military barracks. Authority and responsibility were an innate obligation. The more masculine he was considered. However, in the 18th century, the course of history changed dramatically. The Industrial Revolution. This event didn't just change the economy. It fundamentally changed the definition of masculinity. Now there was a new measure of masculinity: the provider. Men transformed into stoic figures, working away from home in factories and offices to provide for their families. This new economic order shifted the man's role from home to the workplace, and emotional expressions were seen as an obstacle to becoming a part of this new machine. Emotions were seen as a euro defect euro that reduced productivity in the workplace. Phrases like Euromen don euro ti cry euro were actually a directive for the new Eurofactory man euro model during this period. Being strong was no longer about muscle, but about the numbers in a bank account. In this period, the term provider not only brought a physical action, but also an emotional detachment. Silence was a sign of sacrifice and proof of emotional resilience.
The provider philosophy became the new sacred text of masculinity.
Therefore, the ability to earn money became the main factor that determined the familiar S honor and the maniero S value. However, in the 20th century, these fixed roles would also begin to be shaken. The most complex part of our detective file is the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st. The social changes created by the two world wars, and especially the feminist movements, broke the Euro 1 true Euro definition of masculinity. Women went beyond social roles and not only joined the workforce, but also took leadership positions and alleviated the pressure on men from being the sole Euro provider Euro. Women Euro's entry into the workforce meant that the old Euro provider Euro role no longer belonged to men alone. The emergence of a new male figure, one who is successful in his career, helps with household chores, and can openly express his feelings. On one hand, he was expected to be physically and financially strong, while on the other hand, he was asked to be an emotionally sensitive, understanding figure who spent quality time with his children. This is like asking a smartphone to act like an antique phone and only make calls, while also using the latest technology. The man was left in the middle of these contradictory expectations, not knowing what to do. This chain of expectations caused men to feel trapped in a role. The question, who should I be? Had never been so complex in history. However, the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century changed this situation. Masculinity, which was once a simple and one-way roadmap, has now turned into an intersection full of countless signs, each pointing in a different direction. The definition of masculinity became complex, like a man lost in a labyrinth. This contradictory situation triggered the process of men redefining their identities. This situation created a role confusion for men. Traditional and modern expectations created a tangled knot. These objects show how many different roles masculinity encompasses. The new definition is not only based on toughness and strength, but also on empathy and cooperation. Now a man can have different identities in both his professional and personal life. When we close our file, we see that the modern masculinity is actually a definition. This is not the sudden emergence of a disease, but the result of thousands of years of evolution. This is an inevitable result of the modern world and changing expectations. Now, being strong is measured not only by muscles, but also by emotional intelligence. This change makes masculinity a more flexible, more inclusive, and most importantly, a more human concept. Perhaps this crisis is an evolutionary process that will give masculinity a broader, more human definition. Perhaps the real mystery is not seeing this complexity as a problem, but how we will evaluate it as an opportunity. So what do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments, and Lead continue to investigate together.